Hello there and welcome to the Get French Football News preview show. I'm Nathan Staples and joining me this evening are Adam White and Samuel Rooke. The transfer window slammed shut last night, leaving some relieved and some a little peeved, but more on that and the weekend's fixtures as well as Coupe de la Ligue action after the latest headlines. Paris Saint-Germain qualified for the Coupe de la Ligue final on Tuesday night with a 3-2 win over Rennes at Rojan Park. Thomas Meunier, Marquinhos and Giovanni Lo Celso gave the away side a strong lead before Kylian Mbappe saw his first red card of his career for a poor challenge on Ismaïla Sarr. New signing Diafra Sakho sparked a comeback for the home side, but Sanjin Percic's goal was a little too late to really trouble the league leaders, who head into their fifth cup final in a row. They will meet Monaco, who powered through their own semi-final against Montpellier. A Falcao double set up a repeat of last year's final, with the Monegasque ready to get some revenge. In transfer news, there was plenty of interesting deals in Ligue 1 in the final moments of the window. Mathieu Debuchy returns to France on a 6-month deal with Saint-Etienne, the busiest team of the window in France, while there were also a return to the shores for Martin Braithwaite, who heads to Bordeaux on loan from Middlesbrough. Clément Grenier will look to resurrect his form at Guingamp. Enzo Crivelli has swapped Angers for Caen in a temporary move, and Jeff Ryan Adelaide has joined Crivelli's parent side with Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger, asking him to make the most of a move home. Out of Ligue heads Lucas Moura, who's gone to Tottenham, and two surprise moves for Les Verts, with Brian Darboe heading to Fiorentina and Florentin Pogba off to Turkey. Back to matters on the field, Antoine's home game against Dijon this weekend has been postponed. Flooding at the Stade de l'Aube has forced the move, while the fixture will be now played on Tuesday, the 20th of February. And that's all for now. But for all your latest in the world of French football, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week with those games in midweek, and the first one that came across was the really interesting game at Rosan Park between Paris Saint-Germain and Rennes. Eventually, Paris Saint-Germain showed their quality really in holding on in the end, Adam. The real talking point really of that game is the man who was sent off in Kylian Mbappe. It's his first red card of his career. He was seen coming off the pitch saying he had staring directly at the camera really and saying he had a similar challenge a couple of weeks ago and nothing was done. It's still a naughty one though, isn't it? It doesn't excuse exactly what he's done to poor Sarr.
No, it doesn't. It definitely doesn't excuse what he did to Sarr. And it's a bit of a cliche, but he's not that sort of player. And I know that gets said about a lot of players a lot of the time, but he's sort of seen as sort of a very sort of fun-loving. He sort of plays the game with a smile on his face, and I'm surprised because I don't see an attempt to play the ball in that challenge. For those who didn't see it, Ismaïla Sarr sort of running away from him with the ball, and he sort of scrapes his studs down the back of his calf and actually ripped his sock. So, there was force applied. I could see no attempt to play the ball, and it was a sending off. He deserved to go. Whether someone had done it to him previously or not, it's in isolation. It's a red card, and I think he perhaps felt a bit hard done by, given that he claims that it happened to him recently, and that he definitely wouldn't have been sent off if it hadn't been for VAR. I think the referee was going to book him before he saw the replay, and I think the right decision was arrived at. I think he deserved to be sent off. I hope it'll be something of a little bit of a learning experience for him. And he of course, he's an unbelievable player and will bounce back from it. But a definite sending off, and you're absolutely right. It was a naughty challenge. I'm a little bit disappointed that he would do that. I don't think he needed to. They were winning the game comfortably. It got a bit niggly at points, didn't it? There was a bit of needle there from then on and before then. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that he felt the need to make that challenge, because I wouldn't expect it of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if he complains about being fouled, I watched the game on Friday between Dijon and Rennes, and I think I counted on my fingers and toes really out to amount of times that someone tried to kick a poorish Miley Cyrus. It's like he's being hit from pillar to post for most games, and even against the best teams, it seems as well. But that red card led to a bit of a scramble, really, Sam, in the last sort of half an hour. Rennes did come really back into the game. They were a little bit unlucky to see Benjamin Andre's effort ruled out just before they did eventually score, and the sort of comeback came a little bit too late. But it was a little more close to comfort than Paris Saint-Germain after about that 60 minutes would have felt it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, I was under the misapprehension that it was going to be a two-legged affair, and it kind of ended up feeling like that a little bit. It almost felt like two different games. Before and after Mbappe's sending off, Rennes were very much outclassed. Sorry. In the first period of the game, they were 3-0 down. Mbappe goes off, they find themselves, and, it's one of those where it feels like if the game had gone 10 minutes longer, we might have had a draw. We might have had even more drama in this game that already had plenty. Rennes eventually gave a good fist of, gave a good account of themselves and must come away feeling pretty good. Disappointed, obviously, but yeah, certainly if the game had gone a little longer, who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, I bet Rennes are absolutely sick of the sight of seeing blue shirts facing against them week in, week out. That's the fourth time they've played them this season and still yet to get a victory. But this was closer than some of the more recent affairs, at least, and a bit unfortunate. But we are going to see a repeat of the final that we had last year, with Monaco also surpassing Montpellier, who had a really good cup run. But 2 goals from Falcao, but a return possibly, Adam, to the form that we've seen the last couple of weeks. It's been a bit iffy for him again before the winter break. He was a little bit off the pace as well. But 2 good goals and maybe a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I think you're right. His form hadn't been great. It wasn't bad by any means, but the goal tally had kind of slowed a little bit, and he hasn't been as sort of the centre of attention. He hadn't been as evident in games of late, particularly the game at Marseille at the weekend. He was disappointing and didn't really affect the game as much as he would have liked, or I imagine Jardim would have hoped. So that's disappointing. But Falcao, since he's returned to Monaco, he's been unbelievable, and he was fantastic in last season when they won the league, and is their captain. And I feel like it was just a momentary sort of decline in form and just sort of a blip. And he's still an unbelievable forward, still one of the best in Europe. And as he showed last night, he is very much capable of bouncing back from that. The goal in particular, where he sort of flicks, the ball comes into him around the penalty spot, and he sort of flicks up and then volleys it in a sort of very sort of finesse way that you didn't necessarily like. Wasn't too spectacular, but it's still a very graceful goal, and he's a very graceful player. And I imagine that he'll be back to his his best form immediately. I imagine he's last night's game proved that he's well on his way. So huge. He's still huge for Monaco, especially since the departures in the summer. And without him, they wouldn't be challenging for top 4, I don't think. And so to get him back into the goals and get him back playing as the way they think he should, and that he should be, is great news for Jardim.
Absolutely. And it's great to also see that for one of the first times really in French football, at least, that VAR was used as well in 2 relatively big decisions. A penalty was given that was overturned, and a goal disallowed, Sam. A lot of people have questioned about this topic. I think I'm a big proprietor of VAR, really. But 2 right decisions, 2 examples that this could be the way forward for French football as well as European football, as it looks to be heading that way.
This was a much better example. If you wanted to show someone VAR when it works, you'd show them this game. You'd show them, well, look, there was a penalty, it was given. They took a second, looked at the video. They said, well, actually, no, it's not a penalty. It was overturned. And that's fine. No time is wasted. The flow of the game isn't arrested. No problem. Great. Ronnie Lopez thought he'd scored. Again, the game's already stopped. Look at the video quickly. Oh, it's not a goal. Okay, fine. So that's perfect. That's what you want out of the technology. If we're going to have it, it's the way we're going to go, and it certainly seems it's the way we're going. This is how you want it to be used. You want it to be used quickly, effectively, efficiently. They got both decisions right. They were tough decisions. I mean, certainly Jovetic live, I thought it was a penalty, but you come back, you see the replay, you think, okay, well, fine, I'll see what they've seen, and it's overturned. Great. I mean, that's very much what you would hope VAR becomes once they sort of get the kinks ironed out, because it didn't hurt the game. It only helped the game and helped us eventually get to the right result.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to make the point for a lot of people that say it takes a long time to review the decisions. The amount of time I've seen it because players are still screaming in the ear of the referee while he's trying to possibly hear what the VAR referees are saying is probably an extension of that. Just a quick breaking news, really, that I wanted to bring to you both. It's come up from our Twitter account that everyone will remember Ligue 1 referee Tony Chaperon. He's been handed a 3-month suspension for kicking non-player Diego Carlos in a league match last month after the player obviously unintentionally knocked him over. I'll throw this very quickly at you, Adam, really. Is that a good enough suspension for you? Is that long enough of a time off for what was one of the most bizarre things we've ever seen from a referee in all of football?
Yeah, it really was incredible. I was flabbergasted watching it live. It was unbelievable. Yeah, I think it's very difficult because it's so unprecedented. It's very difficult to say what's a just suspension for him. And I kind of feel like that it was in the heat of the moment, and he clearly saw a red mist. He clearly thought he'd been tricked deliberately. Clearly wasn't the case. And obviously he's a match official, so that kind of behaviour is definitely very sort of unbecoming. But I think to write him off and to ban him for years, or to sort of revoke his license perhaps, or whatever, I think that's probably a bit harsh. I mean, it's one mistake. Admittedly, it's a pretty big one, but I don't think he should be sort of crucified for that. So 3 months. I mean, it's still a pretty long punishment, and I think that's probably about okay. I mean, I can understand the point of view where you might say that a match official has tried to kick a player, which is ridiculous, and he should be punished more severely. But I think it's one incident, and it's comical more than anything else. And obviously you wouldn't condone that sort of behaviour at all. But I still feel like that. Yes, he should be banned, and it should be relatively lengthy, like it is. But we should then all move on from the farce that was that incident. So just about fair enough. But I can understand the point of view of banning him longer. But I would a little bit on the side of leniency. It'd be a bit harsh to sort of crucify him first with that one event. His whole career, he's a bit harsh.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to also confirm, I've just seen reports from Timothy Coupe, who's a reporter for France Football. The LFP has supposedly done a 6-month suspension with a 3 months suspended. So it is 3 months, because how a referee is going to be able to get that suspended sentence extended, I have absolutely no idea.
Another incident. If he does it again, he gets his 3 months added on. It's crazy.
Originally, Sam, that suspension sounded about fair. Now it sounds a little bit farcical, really. It was as if they've tried to say we would punish him this harshly, but instead we'll sort of make it seem like it's harsher than it is. Does that the wording of that's very strange, isn't it?
Well, it's a farcical punishment for a farcical event. I think the whole thing was just so very silly. It was a thing that Ligue 1 really doesn't need. It doesn't need silliness, because you get so many people criticizing Ligue 1's quality, and when you see the highlights, what Neymar does, people say, well, yes, but look at the defenders, whatever. Little things like this don't help the league. But at the same time, yeah, if you're giving him, a 2-year suspension, and the fact is the guy's retiring anyway. So it's a bit like when Anelka got an 18-match ban after the World Cup. I mean, he was never going to play again. It didn't matter. It was all very silly. So, I think this is the best thing to do here, is just say, well, he's suspended to the end of the season. He was never going to be a referee again anyway. It's finished. Let's just move on.
Yeah, very, very peculiar stuff. I would like to see him possibly get that suspended sentence extended. I can't imagine he would try and do it again. Let's move on to some more craziness, really, and that's the transfer deadline day. And it always is, and it didn't fail to disappoint. There were some really interesting moves, really, within Ligue 1 and as well as out of the league as well. But let's start with players that joined the league or moved in around it. And I want to start with the sort of strange one in a way. And one of the teams that have signed a lot of players this season is Saint-Etienne, who've brought in Matteo Debuchy to add to Subotic and Tep and Mvia. What do you think to this move, Adam? I mean, if anything, right back is one of their strengths, where you think of Saidianko and possibly Ronald Pierre Gabriel as a player in that position as well. It seems a little bit of a strange one.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, that they've got options in that position. And I like Ronald Pierre Gabriel. I think he's very good. He's still 19, and he's definitely had some moments at Saint-Etienne where he's looked like being able to kick on and make that position his own. But like I said, he is still 19. And the sort of learning from someone like Mathieu Debuchy, who's a very experienced player, and at one time an extremely good player when he was at Arsenal before his injury. He was very, very good before Bellerin broke into the team. Could only be good for him. And I think from Saint-Etienne's point of view, they need experience. given the position that they're in, they need players who are wiser and a little bit more streetwise and capable of sort of a little bit more match smart. They've got a lot of young players, a lot of inexperienced players, and the squad's a little bit sort of apart, aside from Perrin and Ruffier, it's a little bit sort of disparate. It's sort of a collection of signings and young youth products, and one or two guys have been around for a while. And I think they need that kind of security that someone like Debuchy, Neven Subotic, and Jan and V have been around for quite a long time. Remy Cabella is another one who's there as well to add to Perrin and Ruffier to sort of add that stability, which, given that this is probably one of their worst seasons ever after the 5-0 defeat to Lyon, and the fact that they're struggling at the bottom of the table, and the Garcia and incident where he sort of resigned, and they haven't really got a manager at the moment. It's a terrible time for them. So they just need players who are wise heads, who will calm everybody down, who will have a positive impact on the camp, at training, and in games as well. And Debuchy's one of those players. I'm still not sure whether quality-wise he's going to last too long, in sort of owning that right back position, because as you said, Yanko is decent as well, and Gabriel's there, and even Théophile Catrin's played there. He was a right back who was at Cardiff, and he was a right back for a long period at Saint-Etienne too. When he was at Bordeaux, which is now quite a long time, it was like 18 months ago when he was on loan there, he did look to shadow the player that he was before he got that injury, and he really didn't have the impact that they hoped he would have. And so that is definitely a worry here. I know he's done okay for Arsenal in the Europa League when he's played at centre back a little bit too, and hopefully he wasn't really fit when he was at Bordeaux, and hopefully that fitness has returned. So hopefully that's a positive Saint-Etienne, and he can have a positive impact. But I think it's just that he's a proven player, and he has quality that has been proven in this league and in England in the past, and they just need that steadying influence.
Well, that's the funny thing, isn't it? He's played a little bit of football in Europa League, but you still really worry about his fitness. That would only really equate to maybe 6. I know he played in the FA Cup game, so maybe about 7 games this season, but it's not a great amount to say he's going to have to jump into the real fire pit that is Saint-Etienne. And staying on, though, that team, Sam, they also let 2 players go, surprisingly, really, on deadline day, and 2 relatively impressive ones, you would say. I mean, Brian Darbo's headed to Fiorentina. He had a very good start to the season, but again, has maybe sort of been less used since Oscar Garcia left. And Florentin Pogba, who is headed to Turkey, of all places, and a team I don't even try and pronounce, so I'm not going to even attempt that one. But both of those moves seem a little bit out of left field. They were both kind of involved in the squad still, especially Pogba. It seems a little bit strange to allow those players of quality, when they need to keep as many as they can at the moment, let them go.
I suspect that it's possibly something to do with finances, that the players, if you look at the players that Saint-Etienne have brought in, 1 loan signing, 3 free transfers, there's clearly not a lot of money around. But then again, those players will come on wages, probably quite significant wages in the cases of Subotic and probably Debuchy as well. That cloth has got to be cut somewhere. And, perhaps these guys, Pogba, who's had his issues this season, certainly sort of had quarrelled with the authorities at the club, and perhaps they thought, well, someone's offered us some money, we can sort of balance the books here a little bit, and the signings that they've made should be enough to keep them up, reassess this squad in the summer. And, Pogba aging, not getting any better, certainly. If we don't know what they were offered for him, but perhaps it was enough to make it seem worthwhile.
Yeah, I just don't feel that the Pogba one especially just doesn't. It's more that not just Saint-Etienne letting him go. I would think there would be possibly other clubs in France and maybe even bigger clubs in Turkey that were looking at him. But to go to a mid-table side seems a bit of a weird backward step for him, even though Saint-Etienne are struggling this season. Another interesting move, and one I've in fact talked about this week. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it has happened semi-permanently, at least for now, and that's Martin Braithwaite heading to Bordeaux on loan from Middlesbrough. It's been a tough time for him, really, in England. He's not really settled at the club, and Tony Pulis hasn't quite found a place for him since he's joined, so he's allowed him to move back to France, where he has had some success, really, with Toulouse, Adam, and he was pretty impressive, especially in his final season, sort of taking on that mantle of both captain and main goal scorer. Bordeaux need more goals. Is he a man to bring it?
I think he's the man to bring the presence they need up front. They've been playing that 4-3-3 under Gorvmanek, and it looks like they'll probably continue doing that under Poyet. but I think that they lacked a focal point of their attack. Gaetan Laborde, who's been injured quite a lot this season, but he sort of provides that. He was good at Clermont in Ligue 2, and he's been good in spells for Bordeaux, but his goal record really trailed off at the start of the season when he was in the team. And I don't think Nicolas de Préval, as much as you and I are both fans of Nicolas de Préval, is a very effective player on his day, but he's not a lone striker in a 4-3-3, a central striker. He can't hold the ball up. He needs to be playing close to other players. He needs to be playing either in a wider position or as part of a two-man attack, which suits him far better. And he can't play a central striker. So we just need presence for someone that is going to press, to hold the ball up well, to bring other players into play, that has a bit more physicality about him. And Braithwaite has all of those things. Goal-wise, yes, I think he's going to provide more goals than perhaps the options they've got. And you mentioned his Toulouse career. The last 2 seasons at Toulouse, he got 11 league goals in each season, which double figures in a league and is nothing to be sniffed at. It's a difficult league to score goals consistently, and so that's okay. And I think he'll probably get a similar amount, in terms of ratio at Bordeaux as well. So in that respect, he's a positive signing, and he was extremely effective for Toulouse on the left as well. So there's an option there if they end up signing another striker in the summer perhaps, and they keep him beyond the end of this half of the season, or they want to use Laborde and they can move him out to left. He's definitely a very willing runner on those areas, and can be very creative. When that season they stayed up under Dupraz, Ben Yedder played up front and he played on the left, and he was really good then. So it gives him a bit more options, it gives him a bit more physicality, and hopefully he'll give them a few more goals. Although prolific, I wouldn't say he's going to be that, but he'll definitely add the presence that they need.
Yeah, I think they can sort of mix those attackers around a little bit more now with Malcolm and de Préval. They can sort of interchange a bit better with Martin Braithwaite, who's a little bit more comfortable anywhere really than, say, sort of more like Francois Comano, who's really struggled so far this season. Probably the most interesting move in France, at least, Sam, and to some onlookers in Europe at least, is Clément Grenier, who's headed to Guingamp. But it's been a real struggle for the 27-year-old since he broke through. That's it's almost 5 or 6 seasons ago now, really, at Lyon. He exploded onto the scene. He was linked with the likes of Arsenal and other big European clubs, and then injuries really curtailed him. He was on loan at Roma for the second half of last season. Nothing really came of that. But this possibly might be the ideal club for him to maybe make that renaissance.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone hopes that Grenier can get back to the sort of exciting, dynamic player that he was. But as you say, the injuries really do appear to have taken their toll. That Roma spell was probably just this side of a disaster. It really wasn't good. In a good side, he was really not able to sort of show his quality. He's not really had a look in at Lyon this season. And now to move to Guingamp, that seems like maybe it is the right level for him. Maybe it's the place where he'll be able to play with some freedom, but also without the pressure. I mean, they're not going down. They're not really fighting for a great deal at this point in the season. They're just kind of floating along, and that might be the best place for him to go, where there's really no pressure on him. They'll be fine. He'll be fine if he doesn't tear up. If he doesn't score goals, create goals. If he just plays okay, that's fine. It's a good start, a good place for him to maybe try and restart this career, because there's definitely a player still in there somewhere, but we just have to see if the injuries have really, really, really taken their toll, or if he can recover.
Yeah, you have to think with the talent around him, like Briand and Saliba and Coco and others as well, Ludovic Blas as well. There's a lot of good attacking talent in that Guingamp side, and allowing him to maybe slowly grow into the role. It's just a shame that his career seems to be emulating the same curve as someone like Yoann Gourcuff, where his talent was astronomical at one point, but it really, really was deterred by injury. Let's hope he can get better and better again. Another interesting move, and a strange one really from Angers, is Enzo Crivelli heads to Caen on loan as well. It's an interesting one really, Sam, because you can't quite see him unseating in Van Santini necessarily, but it's another option for them, another big, strong striker in the mould of Santini that Caen can use, keeping them up at least anyway, as they start to sort of head into that weird pack of about 10 teams that still are potentially facing the drop.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty shrewd move from Caen. I mean, start of the season, they were absolutely flying. Things have dried up a little bit for them, but they've not been prolific at all. They've needed more goals, and Crivelli, who himself has not been prolific particularly this season, but maybe he's better suited to their style. It's a bit more of a hassle, and frantic a little bit. It's not going to be a lot of chances created for him, but he does fit the mold. As you say, he's big, he's strong, he puts himself about. That fits Caen. He turned down moves to England, apparently. Villa, Wolves, they wanted him. I mean, you've got to really believe in Caen. If this Wolves team particularly, I mean, they're going up, they'll be in the Premier League. To turn down a move to England because you believe in this Caen move, that's great. If this is the project that's been sold to him and he can succeed there. I mean, he's still so young. He's only 22. He can still develop into a bigger player, a more important player, and moving to Caen might be the perfect place for him.
Yeah, I mean, turning down a move to Wolves where you could be a second option on a team almost guaranteed Premier League football next season, even if he doesn't obviously stay at the club, being associated with them and in this sort of excellent run they're on in the Championship would have been possibly a real chance for him to get his name out there a little bit, but not to be, it seems. One other final real interesting move really in the window, and there's one other one I want to mention as well briefly afterwards. It's Jeffron Adelaide, who's joined Angers as well as a sort of extra player for their attacking trio. Adam, it's an interesting one, really. I mean, Arsenal really rate the 20-year-old. He's not played so much this season, but an interesting move for, again, an Angers side being a little bit more adventurous and going for someone that's, especially in their position they are, a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I can definitely see the point of view, but I think that perhaps you could argue that this move is a little bit risk-free from Angers' point of view because, as you said, he's very highly thought of. He was very highly thought of at Lorient before he went to Arsenal originally. Yes, he hasn't played for Arsenal much at all in the last few months, a year. Not this season at all. But given the Angers' position, they're one of those 10 sides that you mentioned at the bottom of the table who are going to be fighting against a drop to the end of the year. And without Cavelli, you imagine they're going to move Karl Toko Ekambi up front, which is where he's been playing anyway and very effective there. And they've got sort of Guillaume Baptiste in support, which opens up an extra slot in sort of the wide areas. And, Angelo Frugini and Billy Coquel-Fonfons, Jules Sunu, Flavien Tate, Thomas Tuchel, they've got some options there. But if he comes in and has an impact, which he's got the ability to do so, then it could be a really worthwhile move for them. And it could be good for his development. He gets some first-team football, which he hasn't been getting at Arsenal, of course. And it could really help both club and player. But then he could also have very little impact. And if it doesn't, then that's fine. They've got other options in those areas who are affecting games and have proven themselves in this league in the past. So I think it is a bit of a gamble in terms of whether he'll be effective or not. But it's almost, if he is not effective, it's not a huge issue. So a shrewd move perhaps because of his talent, and it'll be interesting to see how he gets on.
Yeah, interesting one. The final one I wanted to mention, because it's not quite a move yet. It's been confirmed, obviously, that he'll be joining, but he won't be joining into the summer. And that's Leo Dubois, who will be heading to Lyon in the summer. It's an excellent little move again, Sam. Lyon are very good at these little clever moves as well, signing players up. Dubois is a very good right back, but he's also, if you think of the Lyon side, maybe some might argue that Raphael might be on his way, but Kenny Tete's been impressive this season. It's an interesting one. He's probably going to be the starter, you would assume, so it might ruffle the feathers of those two in the final half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could say that the two of those, Tete and Raphael, are playing for one place, really. I mean, Lyon, it looks like they'll be in the Champions League. They'll need two starting quality right backs, and both of whom will get plenty of games, but they won't need three. So, yeah, very much it seems Raphael the most likely to leave, given Tete's just arrived, and Tete's been very good. Raphael's been fine. He's been Raphael. He's good sometimes. He's not so good other times. I think Tete's a better player. He's also a lot younger. There's more to come from him. But yeah, this is a great signing from Lyon, and you're right, they just do this. Dubois, this January they've also signed Terrier, who's another excellent young France player. Oumar Soleil as well is another one from Laval. This is just what Lyon do so very well. All the signings, they're just the young. Many of them are French. They're just big on talent, and they know they have this production line where these guys will get games. People will see how talented they are. Eventually, they'll move on, and it just starts all over again. Lyon are just excellent at this, and it's signing Dubois is just another cracking move from them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of move that starts moving them up an extra little tier that they might need to be next season. As if they can keep on hold of players and have someone like Dubois, maybe bring in another centre back or something like that. Maybe add some extra little bit of depth everywhere else as well. They could be a really good team next season. On to really our favourite really moves and least favourite moves of the window, because it's always an interesting one to do. And I'll start with favourite, and I'll start with you on this one. Adam, what's your favourite window coming into Liga in this window?
Lassana Diarra, I think. I think it's just a really shrewd signing, because he was so good for PSG, of course. He was so good at Marseille, and for whatever reason, he sort of led a rather strange career. And I think he wanted perhaps this exact move when he was at Marseille, and it didn't come to fruition, and he ended up being sort of exiled in the Middle East for a bit. But given how good he was at Marseille, and how desperately PSG are in need of a defensive midfielder, and how perhaps they are worried about spending any sort of significant amount of money, given the financial fair play situation, this is such a good signing. And he's experienced. He's a former France international, could be again, and will slot in very, very well into that Thiago Motta role, and could really be surprisingly so. Could really be crucial in the last sort of few months of the season as they sort of juggle sort of 4 competitions. And it's a really good signing, and I'm actually really excited to see him play, because, like I said, he was brilliant at Marseille, and if he can rediscover that form, he could even surpass Thiago Motta in that defensive midfield role. So great signing, and on the cheap as well, which is not how PSG normally go about doing things. But really good. I look forward to seeing him play.
Sam, what's your favourite move?
Well, I actually had Dubois on my list here.
Yeah.
But, given we've covered him, I'm going to give a mention to Pietro Pellegrini, the 16-year-old, the new Zlatan or whatever else comparisons you want to make. But this kid that Monaco have signed from Genoa, huge fee for a 16-year-old, 25 million euros plus bonuses apparently. But this kid has broken all these records. He's the youngest goal scorer in Serie A history, youngest debutant, first born in this century to play, first born to score a double. From a purely selfish point of view, I'm excited that he's come to France, because we get to watch him and we get to see just how good he is. I mean, if he's anywhere near as good as he seems like he might be, he's going to be a cracking player to watch, and he might get games even this season.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think with Guido Carrillo going as well, I think I mentioned it on the main show, that he's got a chance to be that sort of fourth striker at the moment, really, and get a chance maybe behind Keita Balde and Jovetic of getting a couple of games here and there, and still in cup competitions. He's got a chance to be in the Coupe de France. Maybe it's good opportunities to do a little bit of something for them at least. Anyway, this window. There's a few moves that I really like. You can pick out a few, really. I quite like Diafra Sakho. I think he's a good addition if Rennes can keep him fit. I'm a big fan of Ntep. I think him being in Saint-Etienne will add an extra dimension to them. I really like the Terrier move from Lyon as well. I think he'll be excellent when he does fully join the team in the summer, but whether he'll play is another question entirely, really, to be fair. But I think I'm going to go with Milicevic for Metz. We talked about him on the Monday show, and he just added a little bit of extra dynamism to the midfield, really, of Metz. He adds a little bit more than maybe Coad can do it at his age at the moment, and just gives them a little bit extra that they've possibly needed. And they look a deeper team now, which is great to see, and they're more competitive with that kind of player there as well. So least favourite moves, and this can be moves out of Ligue 1 as well, so I'll open it a little bit more to this one. So I'll start with you this time, Sam. What's your least favourite move in this window?
I'm just going to go with Marseille in general. They had just a huge opportunity to solidify themselves as the at least third best team in France. After the last weekend, Lyon losing, they picked up a point in this battle for the top 3. I mean, this top 3 is just huge for the project, the Champions project. To do nothing at all, when the teams around them didn't spend a lot of money. As Adam mentioned, PSG bringing in Diarra for free, Monaco not spending a huge amount and selling someone as well. Lyon just signing young players, but at least they've all done something. Marseille have done nothing. And there are gaps in that squad. They've got Europa League games coming up. This just seems like a huge missed opportunity for a team. And if they end up finishing 4th, I think you really have to look back at this window and what could have been.
So, Adam, what do you think?
I've got a couple. Firstly, Lucas Moura moving to Spurs. I agree with Neymar. in that I'm amazed he was allowed to leave. And I realise I'm in a minority, as we discussed before on the pod, but I think Lucas Moura is a fantastic player and capable of offering PSG something they don't have really from anybody else, and always affects the game. Was a second top goal scorer and assist provider in all competitions last season, and has been criminally underused this year. And I'm very disappointed to see him go as well. As Neymar came out and said, seemed to be very harshly criticising Emery about not for the first time about that sort of thing, and saying that he felt he should be used more and he shouldn't be allowed to leave. And I would be on board with that. The second one was Toulouse, taking a team that is in sort of in general. They signed Mubele, which kind of sums up kind of the issue that he's a similar kind of player as a forward, sort of in a similar mold to ones they already have, and I really think they lack creativity. They tried to sign Clement Grenier as well. To be fair, to lose, Grenier turned him down, but he would have been the perfect sort of player. And I really felt like if they couldn't sign him, then they should have gone for a similar sort of player instead of signing Mubele. Although he may be useful and he may score them a few goals, I just think that it's not fixing the problem that they have, which is lack of creativity. And Grenier would have done that. So I'm disappointed they didn't try and go for a similar sort of player. So Lucas Moura and Mubele, although nothing against Mubele, he's a good player.
Yeah, I think Miley's favourite one came relatively early, and that's Vincent Cosiello heading to Cologne. I think we'll all miss what could have been, it seems, still for Cosiello. He's not really played for them yet because they're on a real tear at the moment in Germany as well. But he was a fantastic footballer a couple of years ago. He was, ironically, our young player of the season, the same season that Ousmane Dembele came through the ranks. It was a real toss-up between the two, and because of the extra 6 months he had, we picked Cosiello, and it's just a shame that he's never really realised his potential in Nice. And it's also probably a shame that no one else in Ligue 1 tried to take a risk on him. If someone like Cologne managed to attract him, yes, obviously German football has a little bit more money. It's a fantastic city and a fantastic stadium and a club with great potential if they can stay in the Bundesliga, but they look still now, even though they've sort of clawed back a lot of points, they still look like they'll be in a dogfight for a long time to come. It's just a surprise that I'm thinking of maybe a Saint-Etienne's, maybe a Rennes, maybe a Nantes even, didn't throw their hat in the ring, or at least try a little bit harder to keep him in the French league, which is such a shame. Hopefully he does blossom well in the Bundesliga and maybe makes a comeback someday to French football. That would be nice. But hopefully his talent hasn't been fully wasted with his time at Nice, really ending on a sour note, if anything. Let's head on now to our Ligue 1 previews. And we've just got 3 games this week, obviously, because the transfer window would try and limit it a little bit more. And I wanted to start with an interesting one on Saturday between Amiens and Saint-Etienne. Now, I wanted to talk about the wayside to start off with, Adam, because they've had a number of different changes this winter window. Obviously, they have a different manager in Jean-Louis Gasset. They have 5 new players, 5 players going out the door. I mean, there's a few that we haven't mentioned this evening in terms of going out, because Leo Lacroix has gone on loan to Basel in Sweden. Leos Diony has gone on loan to Bristol City. Alexander Soderlund has headed back to Rosenborg as well. Ousmane Tanan's come back on loan, so he's back at the club as well. A lot of different changes here. They were okay at the weekend. They obviously grabbed the win they need, but it wasn't at all convincing. They need these players to gel and gel quickly, don't they?
They do. They really do. You're right that it wasn't convincing against Caen last weekend, but I think that won't matter too much to Saint-Etienne. I think they just need points. I just think this is the season they just need to get over with, to stay in the league and to move on. It's been, like I said, it's been an absolutely terrible year for them, and arguably the worst, if not one of the worst in their history. So yeah, they definitely need these players to gel. And as I said, with Debuchy, it feels that they've signed experience. Like Subotic, obviously, he's very experienced players. Cabello and Jan Vio. Cabello, of course, came in the summer. They as I said before as well, they sort of very disparate group of players. So yeah, they definitely need to gel quickly. I think that they need a manager who's going to have a little bit more direction. Obviously, Jean-Louis Gasset is a very experienced coach, and traditionally an assistant coach. He was to Laurent Blanc for a long time. He was at Montpellier too. But I really think that Garcia, in hindsight, was actually quite a good appointment in terms of direction. It felt like that they had some sort of purpose under him, although the results weren't as good as they would have hoped. Perhaps they started the season very well. I think looking forward, once they get out of this season, then they need to look for another sort of, not necessarily marquee appointment as manager, but they need a a manager who's going to give them a bit more direction. But if you look at their first 11 now, it looks like a good team. You sort of think, Rufio in goal, you've got Subotic, Perrin, Debuchy, and Gabriel Silva's been all right. Then you've got Cabello and Villa. Diusi's a good player as well in midfield, a young chap, and Tep, Hamuma, Bamba, Beric. They've got options up front too. So on paper, it's a decent team. It's just whether they can, as you said, gel soon, and whether they can maintain sort of form between now and the end of the year and not get sucked into the bottom three come May.
Yeah, and they face an Amiens side who slowly but surely have slided back into the mire, really. They had a really excellent end to November that made us think that maybe they were on to staying in the league, but they've only won 1 of their last 8, one being a draw against Montpellier, and they've only scored 5 goals in that time. The anomaly being that 3-1 win over Guingamp has sort of boosted that stat a lot more. They've had a lot of games where it's finished 1-0, 1-0, and 2-0. Are you starting to fear for them now in this second half of the season, Sam, that maybe with games coming up, I mean, Saint-Etienne, they're changing, but Bordeaux looked a much better team against Lyon. They've got Nantes coming up and Rennes in the next 5 games as well. Are you starting to worry that maybe the dream is slowly fading away from them?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've pointed out 2 things there that are really important, that they've got 4 points since November in the league. I mean, that's terrible. There's no way to dress that up, and that the games ahead of them are not easy wins. There are not a lot of easy wins in this league anymore. I mean, even Metz at the bottom have shown that they're winning games. Everyone's scrambling away to stay up, and we all thought, as you said, Amiens had put themselves in a position where they were relatively safe, but they're not anymore. They're a point out of the point away from 18th, and yeah, this is a very, very important game, not just for Saint-Etienne, and obviously we focus on Saint-Etienne because of the history of that club, and no one wants to see them go down. But Amiens, have been fun. They've really brought something to the league, and this is a game that if they win it is huge as well, because it really pushes them away from that drop zone. It pushes a lot of teams between them and relegation, and the form they're in, they really need to start getting some points because the teams around them are doing that.
Yeah, my real worry for Amiens really is this February-March period. I think is massive for them because in April, May, the last 6 games of the season is away to Lyon, at home to Strasbourg, away to Monaco, home to Paris Saint-Germain, home to a Metz side that might still be fighting for their lives as well, finish away to Marseille. That is a murderer's row. For 4 of those 6 games you absolutely don't want at the end of the season. And if they are in the mire, they might not be able to pull themselves back out of it. So those games, those 5 games are tough. They've got a little spell between them, Dijon, Troyes, Lille, Caen. Maybe that's the sort of spell where they definitely need to grab the points before that sort of agonising end to the season, because that does not look favourable for them, shall we say. That's might be the political way of saying it. Let's go for some predictions, and I'll start with you then, Sam. What's your prediction in this one?
I think Saint-Etienne are going to throw away the habit of being just terrible away from home this season. I think you're going to win this 1-0.
Adam?
1 each for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for a 2-0 Saint-Etienne win. I'm beginning to fear for Amiens. I think if they don't pick up some sort of get on some kind of run sooner rather than later, that end of season is going to absolutely spring on them forward. On to another game that's an interesting one with 2 interesting sides at the moment in Strasbourg and Bordeaux, and I want to focus on the away. Let's start with the away side. And Bordeaux picked up a great win at the weekend that absolutely no one saw coming, really. In all honesty, I don't think anyone would have put money on Bordeaux to beat Lyon 3-1, although farcical diving and such aside. It was a great point and a great start for Gus Poyet, who's got a couple more players in, and now where they are in the table, a couple of wins maybe puts you in about 6th, which is absolutely insanity to think that Ligue is so close like that at the moment. And this is a result that they got last weekend that they need to build on at Strasbourg.
Absolutely. Given when you look about the previous game against Strasbourg, they lost 3-0 at home. They were absolutely terrible. That goal Martin Terrier scored where he sort of waltzed through the defence. They're just, absolutely no resistance whatsoever for the 3rd goal, I think it was. And they were absolutely terrible in that game. But the difference between Gourvenec Bordeaux and non-Gourvenec Bordeaux is incredible. And I'm surprised at that, because I feel, as we mentioned before, Gourvenec's a good coach, and he felt like he got a bit of a raw deal at Bordeaux and didn't really work out for him. But to the extent that which Bordeaux have picked up since, it really feels like one, perhaps we're wrong about Gorvanek, or there really was a division in the camp that really he had completely lost some of the dressing room. But since he's gone, they were really good against Nantes. Won that game 1-0 away from home, and they were, as you mentioned, actually fantastic against Lyon last week. Lyon were perhaps looked a little bit lethargic, but Poyet, although he has flaws as a coach, and it's not always gone the way he would have liked in certain positions throughout his managerial career. He is he in the short term at least he can be a motivational influence, and he kept Sunderland up that first season, and he has qualities that Bordeaux need at the moment. So it might work out to be the right sort of fit in the short term. And if you look at Bordeaux's form overall, they obviously won that game against Troyes, so they actually won 3 of the last 4 games. And on paper, they're still a very good team, even without Toulon and a few others who left in the summer, and a few have been out of form. Caffey's not been in the team. Depravio's sort of only returned to form recently. So I think that if they can build on that win, then you're right. They could be up in the top 7, and suddenly, if Nice or Nantes drop off, they could be looking at Europa League all of a sudden, which was their target at the beginning of the season anyway. So I think that says more about the league being extremely tight than Bordeaux's form, but it's possible. And who knows if Poyet can keep this sort of intensity going. There was so much more intensity last week, which is great to see. Then they could absolutely start challenging in the top third of the table, which would be craziness when you think about how they've been.
Yeah, absolutely nutty. And that's Ligue 1 at the moment, really. And a side that sort of epitomises that at the moment, Sam, is Strasbourg. I mean, they seem to be the sort of Jekyll and Hyde club of Ligue 1 at the moment. They had an excellent start to December, beating Paris Saint-Germain and Bordeaux, and then Toulouse as well, and then lost just before the winter break to Metz 3-0, which came out of nowhere. Started the January with 2 defeats, one to Guingamp at home, one to Marseille away, which is forgivable, and a great game against Dijon that managed to nick a win. But they weren't great against Lille. They did reply quite quickly at least, but Bigori Camara needed to be forced to make a lot of sort of saves and help them out quite a bit. They are still sat in 12th. It's still in that kind of crazy moment, but they're a side there at the moment you can't really predict.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They totally epitomise everyone from sort of 4th down to about 20th at this point in Ligue. You can't predict what they're going to do from week to week. And I mean, to use the word again, but epitomising that, the fact they beat and lost to Lille within 3 days, that just shows you really cannot predict what they're going to do. But the thing you can predict is they're going to concede a lot of goals. They are giving away so many goals. They're not keeping clean sheets at all. They're not scoring enough to make up for that. They score a lot for the bottom half of the league, which is why they are where they are. It's why they're sort of relatively comfortably mid-table and not further down. But they have a real problem with letting the opposition score. And that's not how you stay in the league. And that's all this season is about for them. I mean, they've got big plans. The project there is quite serious about being a long-term Ligue 1 club again and really building on this. But staying up obviously is incredibly vital to that plan. And games like this against Bordeaux, they wouldn't have expected really coming into the season possibly to be in with a really good chance of beating Bordeaux. But Bordeaux too are a very Jekyll and Hyde side. They were excellent against Lyon, as Adam said, but there's every chance they'll turn up terrible again this weekend. So it's a game that Strasbourg really need to try and win, and they need to score goals because, as I've said, they will concede.
Yeah, because you're looking at, they've got Toine next week as well. That's an interesting game for them really to win. But that's the thing at the moment. If you lose a game, you're right back in the mire really. If other teams around them start winning, and then if you win a game, all of a sudden you've maybe got some breathing space for at least a week, maybe until maybe the next issue comes around the corner. But they just need to try and pull a little bit further away. If you're going in sort of the April time, this kind of squad they've got that isn't particularly deep, really. If you're going into that final couple of months of the season, still trying to fight your way out of the sort of melee that's sort of gone into the middle of Ligue 1, and they might really fall back into the pit. And that, with the project they have, and it's an exciting one at that, if they can stay in Ligue 1, in terms of being a stable club in the top division, it's really vital that they do that. So let's go for predictions again. Adam, what do you think in this one?
I think it's going to be an interesting game. Strasbourg good at home. 2-2?
I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 Strasbourg win. I just think this is their moment to nick a game, because next week they'll face a Troyes side that they probably should be beating at home, and they'll probably lose. So they'll probably be nice enough for this one and grab a victory. Sam, what do you think?
I'm going to go 1-0 Strasbourg. I think Bordeaux will be a shadow of what they were against Lyon, because the one thing that's been consistent about them this season has been inconsistency.
Yeah, and getting up for a game against Lyon isn't too difficult. Poyet motivating them to try and get a result at Strasbourg might be a little bit tougher, really, in all honesty, because Sunday there's going to be another cracker in 3 weeks, and we've been treated every single weekend to a fantastic game, and this one has a lot to live up to, really, given the other ones that Lyon have been involved in against PSG, and then Monaco. Marseille was excellent last weekend, and Monaco now face Lyon themselves. Let's start with the away side, Adam, and they really struggled against Bordeaux. They seemed half asleep for a lot of that game, really. They were lethargic. They didn't really get up to much. It was also weird decisions by Genesio to decide to take off Toussaint. I know he's trying to probably be more attacking, but bringing off Toussaint and bringing on Memphis just seemed like a strange tactical decision that didn't really help matters in any kind of form. It's deflating for the players, given that they had an excellent result really against Paris Saint-Germain. Maybe we're building to at least some kind of title fight, but it's just petered away straight away again in a game that they should have been winning.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it must be really deflating, because all that good work they did against PSG, where they were brilliant and deserved their win, in extenuating circumstances, with Alves getting sent off. But they were, it was a really hard fought win, and then to go away to Bordeaux, who've been terrible for such a long time, and get, in the end, it was a bit of a battering, and Bordeaux fully deserved their win, and it kind of undoes all that good work that they did the week before, and PSG are back 11 points clear, and the sort of glimpse of a title race seems to have sort of vanished almost immediately. One thing I'm really looking forward to seeing, or sort of going forward with Lyon in this game and beyond, is how Genesio fits his players into his team, because Ndombele has been so good in recent weeks that he's become undroppable, and he wasn't necessarily first choice. He was in and out of team, played a lot of games, but a few games he didn't start too, and he's now left with Fekir, who has to start, obviously captain, their best player, Ndombele, Toussaint, who has to start, Aouar obviously has to start. He's been absolutely brilliant this season. Mariano's their only real central striker. And then you've got obviously Depay and Bertrand Traore, and obviously all 7 of those players can't play. And then if Ndombele is this good and he keeps playing this well, he's so dynamic in that midfield role. He kind of uses up one of the places that Aouar would fit into, and I think Aouar's much better in a central midfield role than he is on a wide left role. And then if you end up moving him forward, you get less out of him, and he knocks one of Bertrand Traore or Memphis Depay out of the team. And you've got problems there, or you move Fekir wide, and I think he's worse there too. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, and how he fits them all into this team. And I think if Lyon are going to finish second and get straight into the Champions League group stages, which is a huge prize for one of those 3 teams chasing PSG in Monaco and Marseille, and obviously which is sort of semi up for grabs this weekend. It'd be a huge swing one way or the other if a team was to win this Monaco-Lyon game. How he fits those guys into his team and if he can do it effectively, would be crucial to Lyon taking that second place. So it's sort of a bit of a difficult sort of conundrum for him. Obviously, the classic good situation to have, but he needs to keep Aouar, Ndombele, Toussaint, Fekir, and Mariano playing the way they have been for the rest of the season. Otherwise, they could drop off. There might be some difficult decisions to be made in that midfield. And coming up against Monaco as well, who've kind of switched that similar formation of 3 midfielders. It might prove, in this game in particular, that it could have ramifications as soon as the weekend. So I really like to see how he's going to handle that. And he may have to drop one of those players, and he might have some unhappy players on his bench on Sunday night and for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. What keeps astounding me about Lyon, and especially in that game as well, is I don't really understand why they start Maxwell Cornet, really. He was really ineffectual against Bordeaux, and they took forever to take him off. Instead, they took off Toussaint early, unless it was because of a possible knock or something like that. It just seems strange that they kept the winger on for so long. I mean, he managed to make 63 minutes, but I can barely remember him touching a ball, and he's been really effectual this season. I know Bertrand Traore is maybe not quite hit the ground as running as much as they hoped for, but Depay has at least affected games with goals. You would think that maybe they'd start him on the left and maybe have Aouar on the right, or even swap them over, or try Traoré, because Cornet started the last couple of games, and even in the Paris, he was starting in the Paris Saint-Germain game to memory, wasn't he, as well? It didn't really affect the game. I don't really understand why he kept on playing him. It's not a bit of a strange one, really. On to the hosts at the weekend, really, and they had a fantastic game, really, on Sunday night. The game against Marseille was a real barnstormer again, Sam. It was end-to-end. There were some great goals. Keita Balde scored the first one. That was a superb finish. Fabinho was absolutely magnificent for the second one as well. They still seem a bit weak at the back. Again, you worry about that midfield. Is there really the strength in there that there was last season? It is every week seems to be dissipating. But more importantly, this is the last big game really until mid-April, when they face Paris Saint-Germain at the Parc des Princes again in week 33. So it's a long while before they face a big team again. But it's the last time, obviously, they'll face one of those teams around them, with Marseille and Lyon facing each other later down the line. This is a really big game for them, isn't it? Would you say it's must win?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the last chance to really stop Lyon from getting away. I mean, if Lyon win this game, they're 4 points clear, and we know how consistent the three chasing sides, Lyon, Marseille, and Monaco have been this season. We know that 4 points is a big gap, and if Monaco are fourth by by some margin after losing this game, after not beating Marseille, and they weren't the better side against Marseille either. Marseille probably could feel a little bit unlucky to have not won that game. The amount of chances they had to score to extend their lead and then to retake their lead. Monaco were a little bit lucky to get a draw there, and they are the chasers now. It's difficult for them because they've not been in this position all last season. They were the leaders. They were being chased. In most of this season too, they've been second. They've been the ones who've been chased by these others. Now they're in a real different situation, and we know that they have problems. We know that Falcao's goals have covered up so much of that, and that when those goals dried up in the last month or so, some of the points dried up as well. If Falcao isn't able to lift and to help Monaco win this game, beat Lyon, or at the very least get a draw, it's very, very difficult for Monaco to catch back up to those top three places, and it's just huge for Monaco, for everything that their system is built around, the whole system of bringing in these exciting young players, building them up, getting them on show in the Champions League, and then selling them on. This whole thing, it won't fall apart, but it will take a big blow if they do miss the Champions League.
Yeah, and it's going to be another titanic clash, and probably the most difficult bit of our show tonight is predicting the result in this one. So I'll go with you first, Adam. What do you think in this one?
3-1 Lyon.
Sam?
Oh boy, that sounds very exciting. If Adam's prediction comes true, that's going to be a cracking game of football. I'm going to be a little bit more modest and say a 2-1 Lyon.
I fancy this one to be a really good one again. These games between the top four this season have been absolutely terrific. I think almost every single one of them has had a little bit of something about them, and I think this won't be any different. I think this is going to be about 3-2 Lyon. I think this is going to be a real cracking game. Monaco's defence really worries me, but their ability to just nick goals in games all season long, really. I mean, I'm just looking at the results now. Other than the Montpellier game, in all of January, they scored 5, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2 and 2. So I'll go with 2 again. So 3-2. So that's all that we have for this week. My thanks to Adam, Sam, and all of you listening at home. Do join us again for the main show on Monday. But for now, enjoy your weekend of football.